Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1 Good Vibrations. As I record this video, it is 26 April 2020 at about 6 o'clock p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I actually managed to get on the air a little bit this afternoon during one of those limited time periods when I'm not having incapacitating intestinal issues or fatigue issues. And it was a nice day, so no lightning threat, and I tested my ICOM IC746 Pro to be sure that it would tune up on all of the bands from 10 megahertz all the way up through 54 megahertz. It actually will, the tuner actually will compensate for the standing wave ratio on all of these frequencies. And so I concentrated primarily on the 14, 18, and 50 megahertz band, and I went immediately to the 50 megahertz band, 50.175 megahertz to be exact, because one of the viewers has repeatedly indicated that he is on that frequency quite a lot, sending CQ. And I figured, well, if that person is sending CQ, and if there's some Sporadic-E, and if we happen to be on the air at the same time, then I'm going to hear him. But we're asking for an awful long shot because of low probabilities of all of these things taking place at the same time. I didn't hear anything on the 6-meter band. I asked if the frequency was in use at 50.175 and heard nothing, so I sent a few CQs, thinking that, well, you know, if maybe the guy is monitoring the band and will hear my signal. Of course, it was in CW. I don't know whether CW or sideband is prevalent in that portion of the 6-meter band, but even if he was listening for a voice, he'd doubtless hear the code. Got no response, though, after several tries. So I checked down each band in turn, 28 megahertz, then 24 megahertz, then 21, then 18, then 14, and then I even tried the 10 megahertz band to see if the transmitter would contend with the SWR on that band, even though right at the moment that antenna is a 16-foot high vertical fed through a 50 picofarad capacitor at the base. So on 10 megahertz, you can well imagine that's going to look like a pretty short stick. And the SWR meter went crazy for a while, and then it finally settled. But I had to recalibrate a number of things. But I got the radio to think it was working into a 1-to-1 standing wave ratio. Unfortunately, the human-made noise level on that band was too high for me to hear any signals. Trying 14 megahertz, I heard a contest of some kind going on with some signals with 4-letter suffixes, H-O-M-E, as in home. And there were several of them, so I figured it was a contest, and all they wanted was a signal report. So I picked one of those stations that was fairly loud and called him several times. No response. I think 5 attempts I made. And so I figured my 10 watts RF output wasn't enough to break that particular pile up. So going on up to 18 megahertz, 18.068 to 18.168, there were some signals on 18.100. They appeared to be similar to WSJT, very slow frequency shift keying. I'm unfamiliar, unfortunately, with all of those modes. These newfangled modes have got this old timer completely befuddled. I know CW inside and out, backwards and forwards, right side up and upside down. But I don't know much about these newfangled fancy digital modes for you youngsters out there to enjoy and master. I ought to start learning about some of that, but I'm just content with a regular old keyer and CW. But I heard the signals of the band was open, so I went down a little in frequency and called a few CQs after asking if the frequency was in use. Didn't get any response. Tried several different frequencies down there below those whisper mode or WSJT signals. Didn't get any responses. I tried listening on 21 megahertz, and as I said, I tested the transceiver on each and every one of those bands to be sure that it would match the antenna. The favored band, or the band in which the antenna was least bad in terms of standing wave ratio directly, was the 18 megahertz band. The 16-foot high vertical would normally resonate on 14 megahertz, but the 50 picofarad capacitor in series brought it down to about 2.5 to 1. So it was pretty favorable there. And as I said, the reason I have not extended that antenna to its full length is because I'm not strong enough anymore to leverage it. You know, I have to hold it upright and then slide those aluminum tubing sections down, slide the lowermost one in, and the lower the frequency, the longer the antenna, and to sit there and try and slide I don't know what it amounts to, about a 17 or 18 foot, probably 18 foot high aluminum pole, try to hold that upright when it's whipping around. Even if there's no wind, it's a pretty difficult task, and for someone who's been weakened by months and months of immobility, primarily because of my Charcot foot problem, just couldn't pull it off. Couldn't get the balance necessary, so I had to shorten the antenna. Excuses, excuses, excuses. But at least I'm not making excuses for advocating, or apparently advocating, the injection of substances such as bleach, or shut up, Stanley. Shut up. Don't inject any substances like that into your body is all I can say. Don't listen to any of the people who think maybe, don't be fooled by this bad joke, blah-blah-blah, blah-blah-blah, blah. Shut up, Stanley. It's time for you to quit so you don't bore your audience to death. But I did try to get on the air, and I got on the air, and I did hear signals, just didn't make any contacts. I can't spend much time in any position other than supine on my bed or lying on my side, because this foot, they tell me, don't put any weight on it. Well, you know, you get weak after a year and a half of just laying around. Oh well, at least of all the array of symptoms now that they have for whether or not you have COVID-19, I haven't displayed any of those, and it hasn't been hard to maintain a home lockdown. I'm just lucky that I have a home to live in, a nice warm house that's all paid for, nobody else living in it, and I can just yammer away like this and nobody's going to complain except maybe some of you. Stan Gibilisco, W1GV, saying 73, and so long, which in my native fist translates to di-di-di-da-di-da.